Well, this is it. I've made it all the way to the Bigfoot trap in Oregon, in Applegate. This is the beginning of my interviews with Steve Streufert. I've come to Willow Creek to interview my childhood friend. We lost touch, but after a mutual friend told me Steve had become a squatcher and owner of Bigfoot books, I hunted him down. How do I describe Steve Streufert? How do you describe Bigfoot? I can't. So I decided to interview Mr. Streufert on camera.
I had looked into this Bigfoot thing a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
The next thing I knew, moved here, and there was Bigfoot right on the corner. You know, a big Bigfoot statue sculpted by Jim McLaren in 1967. That's the same year that the Patterson film was shot. Immediately, like, this appealed to me. It wasn't so much that I believed in Bigfoot, but it was an interesting possibility. And certainly it was an interesting study in, like, human belief. Why do people think this thing is real? And it gets increasingly hard to really figure it out. You know, I've been looking up there in the mountains since 2001, right?
Yeah.
Or earlier, actually, because we had that Church of Bigfoot. It was kind of a humorous thing with Andrew and Jay. But, I mean, the Church of Bigfoot was basically founded in, like, late 1999. That was just for fun, but we did have at least one bizarre experience up there in the woods outside of Blue Lake. Could have been a Bigfoot. They have Bigfoot reports in Ohio,
Which I think...
Florida.
I think Sasquatch belongs to California and the Pacific Northwest. That's a personal, as a Californian thought, though.
Well,
You can't just be in Arkansas and be like, I saw him.
You know, there's reports of Bigfoot everywhere. In fact, the most reports of Bigfoot are from areas where people are. That's why Bigfoot sightings get associated with trailer parks and rural bubbas drinking beer on their porch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The whole Boggy Creek image, right?
Sure.
Co-eds in a building out in the wilderness, you know, Bigfoot peeks his face in the window,
Shakes the
staring
trailer.
at the girls, right? He's lonely. He's the last of his kind. Yeah, I mean, that's because that's where people are. I mean, either if you're gonna have a Bigfoot sighting, you have to have some human being there to see it, right? It's like that tree falls in the forest. Does anyone hear it kind of thing? You know, I mean, there could be a whole thousands of Bigfoot just north of here and nobody would know, because no one really goes out there in those areas. Very few. Most of the sightings are right along the highway, right along here, right over there, right over there, right over here, behind these cabins, back here on Friday Ridge Road.
What's the last sighting that you thought the person was credible?
Pretty much every year there's a few of these
That are where you are like, God, there's some merit to that.
Well, when they seem undeniable, right?
Yeah.
Like Bigfoot researchers who come and tell me that they had action. I mean, I tend to think like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know? There's some of them I trust more than others who are more rational.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're the most active people in Bluff Creek, and we don't have the same action that they do. We have natural action that we can identify pretty easily. Now, when you're just talking about the average person around here who's like lived here a good portion of their lives and knows what the wildlife are, knows what the environment consists of, it's hard to dismiss their reports. They're not seeking Bigfoot, you know?
Yeah.
They're not living every day thinking, oh, I gotta see a Bigfoot just to make my life meaningful, or so I can be popular on social media, Bigfoot groups and stuff.
Sure.
Or I want to get famous and get on TV and stuff. You know, that kind of motivation, I think, is distortion of reality. It's like, you know, you want to see what you believe in so badly that you're gonna see it. Other people, they're taken by surprise. They don't necessarily want to see Bigfoot. They don't even want to tell you they saw Bigfoot because it's like embarrassing. They're afraid that someone's going to make fun of them, right?
Yeah.
There's a social stigma attached to it still today. And around here, you have to really get to know people. I've been here since 2001, And people only, started telling me and trusting me with these things in like 2005, and it's slowly getting more and more that way. People know who I am and will tell me about it. So, like the lady who was driving out here by Hawkins Bar last year, she saw the Bigfoot coming across from one side of the road and walked quickly across the road, 2-lane highway with shoulder, and meanwhile it was going all the way in front of her. She had a good look at it in the daytime, and then as she was slowing down, she looked out the passenger window and it was going up the bank, so she saw it moving up the hill. And I mean, there's no mistaking it at that point. With that kind of a long glimpse at the thing, you see its locomotive adaptations. It's not a quadrupedal bear, right?
And you're not talking about something in the middle of the night where you see a shadow cross a wall.
It's not like a snipe hunt.
Yeah.
When you're on a snipe hunt, you're gonna see things that are imaginary. It's like Bloody Mary in the mirror or something. You might see Bloody Mary if you really get into it.
Yeah.
If you believe in demons and ghosts and goblins and stuff, every little bump in the night, the noise of your house creaking or the little thing in the attic, like rats running in the attic or something, suddenly it becomes demons. I know this stuff very well. I grew up like enchanted with that stuff. Probably most people did.
Sure.
Believing in weird things. Going to cemeteries when I was a teenager and having ghosts and strange Ouija board experiences and stuff. I mean, what can I say? I mean, I know better now. This stuff, it's not real, The Bigfoot thing, it could be real, Because people do see it in non-crazy situations that don't involve drugs or hallucination, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
They're smart, credible people. Like the old Native American lady. In that culture, you don't tell blatant lies,
Yeah.
And in a small town like this, you really don't tell a lie. You don't go lying because everyone will know you as a liar.
Yeah.
Shortly and soon enough. And that's a worse stigma to have than having a Bigfoot sighting. It's one thing to see a human walking along the side of the road in the shadows and think it's a Bigfoot. I mean, that's a misconception. But if you really get a good look at it and you look twice, you maybe had the first thought, that's just a human. But then you see it more closely and you realize, damn, that thing's 8 feet tall and it's got hair all over its body. It's not wearing clothes. What the fuck? Yeah, well, you gotta love sci-fi if you're of our generation. All this weird stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars and everything else after it.
Sure.
Monster movies that we grew up on, monster comics. I mean, like, the world of childhood is so fascinating and full of that stuff.
Yeah.
And you grow up and like, what the fuck is this? Boring adult life, right? So everybody wants that. But I mean, if you look at like scientists, these guys who are really doing it, they're the most curious dudes around.
Yeah.
They're going, wow, this is weird, The world might consist of strange little silly strings with crap going on down here in the microparticle level,
Yeah.
Time space is an illusion. I mean, it's great stuff. It's totally science fiction. But I think the mistake is when you don't accept that you're a limited human being and we have limited understanding, and you want so badly to jump to a conclusion,
Yeah.
that you want a certifiable belief that's like you can hold on to. It's real. I believe in God or Jesus or Allah or whatever, whatever that is. That gives meaning to your life and solidity and structure. You can say, I believe in this, therefore I feel like, there's something real in my life. People don't like mystery, and I think that's a weakness,
Yeah.
Certainly there are aliens. Certainly there are undiscovered species on planet Earth. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we can say with statistical certainty that these things are true.
Sure.
Whether aliens are visiting us here now from outer space is an open question. whether Bigfoot is real is an open question, right? So I will go with the possibility, unless there's some certain thing that proves that it cannot possibly be real. The only intelligent perspective to have is one of open inquiry and skepticism. You know?
Yeah.
Curiosity combined with critical thinking. Right? I mean, what kind of world are you living in if you deny all mysterious things? And that's the end of knowledge. That is the end of human history. To say we're the pinnacle of evolution and our science and our knowledge or our religion knows everything. It's all certain now because we have this, the Bible, or we have the science textbook. We think that everything's settled then? I mean, no, we're a young species. I mean, in terms of cosmic time, we're like the larva living in the dirt or in the log, you know, we don't know where we're going and we don't know the full extent of reality. So I'd say, like, go with it. You know, it's like be willing to learn things and not necessarily try to act like you know everything. There's a lot of people who want to come in here and exploit the locals, white or native, you know, whatever we are. They want to exploit Bigfoot and make TV documentaries and stupid comedy out of it. When it comes to like the native culture, that's something that they're pretty guarded about. They don't want to just tell everybody everything. That's their private life, you know? Right. Their spiritual life. It's not something cheap that can just be sold for $100 to get in some book or on TV.
Yeah.
You know, eventually you start kind of getting the different views from the people. You might end up eventually talking to someone who's really rooted in the traditional culture. So you hear different stories, right? From the 20-something person who's doing meth and partying, that's their lifestyle. They're living in the modern world. They probably got something from their culture, but they're also getting it from TV, right? Just like we are. They grew up with movies and documentaries and stuff as well. So the people who are more in the traditional culture will tell you a different story than this Bigfoot that's like on TV. The ancient stories don't depict a hairy ape man. It's something else altogether. It's a woods spirit, a mountain spirit, something that lives in the two worlds. You know, there's a spiritual world and the physical world, and they're kind of intermeshed to a certain degree. And they think like Bigfoot can move in between these worlds because it's not a fully physical animal. And it can change shape, and it's not necessarily a hairy man-shaped thing. It can be amorphous. It can be present without being seen. It can dwell amongst the trees, and you simply just feel it there. And to them, this is a real thing. This is like their view of reality that is not limited, you know. Like, we know that reality is bigger than what our senses show us. And, like, this is what the native people are basically saying, that it's all around us and it's unseen because we're not adapted to see it, except, you know, if we cultivate some form of shamanism or whatever, then it's there. And even then, the shaman is a special character in a tribal group. You know, it's not everybody who's a medicine woman, medicine man. But, you know, like, we're all into, like, radical thought, right?
Yeah.
And what that means is you're critical of things. You're critical of the beliefs that are prevalent around you in society. Like, beliefs of conservative culture, politics, religion, what you were taught in school. And this is how things got started with us as punk rock type people.
Sure.
You're in high school or junior high and suddenly you hear a Devo record and you're like, fuck, you know? And you hear Jello Biafra and you realize, damn, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that's not right. It's either morally or in terms of justice it's wrong, or it's economically and socially wrong. In terms of like the way the U.S. government relates to the rest of the world, there's a lot to be critical of there. And the same thing when you're looking at like the Bigfoot, well, you know, there's a belief system around these things too. Like You have to be critical of these things. It's like cool and seemingly radical to believe in weird things, right? But ultimately, it's its own form of conservatism when you want to believe in something and hold to that belief, like as a bastion against facts. You know, facts are perplexing and they're not very enjoyable because it represents like reality. The reality is something you have to obey. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how far out and trippy your world view might be, you can't get around the facts. Like, you have to eat and shit and drive your car down on one side of the road and obey the traffic laws most of the time. Can't you take too many drugs, you'll be dead, like some of our friends, And I guess I'm a weirdo intellectual about Bigfoot. It's just one aspect of things that I find interesting.
Once the fire's gone out and the little campers are down, the question remains. Is Bigfoot fact or fiction? I don't know. I may never know, and that's how I like it. So, just behind me is where I heard a low kind of growl. It's behind me in the hills. I didn't hear it again. I just heard it for a second. Very strange. Kind of like a low grumble. I just wanted to document the spot before I've had a couple beers at the Alibi Room and nobody believes me. Did I say a couple beers?
Pop top again.